Raise your hand if you've ever had a terrible boss. Nice. I see a lot of hands. Great. Now, raise your hand if you've ever been a terrible boss. If your hand isn't still up, you're lying to yourself. The moment we start leading others, we start finding ways to be bad at it. Not because we suck, because we're human. And this is how we learn. Fuck around and find out, right? Mita Mallick would like us all to find out more quickly. Yes, we're going to be crappy at times, but she's done a lot of work to define our most craptastic tendencies so we can recognize them and stop doing them sooner. I could have used Mita's wisdom many times in my own career. Like that time I told a person on my team I didn't really care for their design style. Her new book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses, outlines the lucky 13 types of bad bosses, so we can stop being most of them and start being who our teams need us to be. Here are a few. Do you recognize any of these in yourself? Medusa, screaming, public humiliation, throwing objects. The napper, disengaged, falling asleep in meetings. Tony Soprano, career-threatening, talent-hoarding. And the cheerleader, toxic positivity, unrealistic expectations. Mita even talks about her own experience as a terrible boss and what she's learned since then. My impression? I think she'd make a great boss. I know she was an amazing guest. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Mita. Okay, Mita Mallick, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thanks for having me, TJ. I'm excited for our conversation.
Likewise, I'm excited to dig in. You've got a book coming out. You've already written a couple of books. I think we'll have a lot of good stuff to talk about. Before we dig in, I'll just give you a chance to introduce yourself. What do you do for work and how'd you come to be doing it?
Yeah. Well, I've been both a marketing executive and an HR executive. I'm on a mission to fix what's broken in our workplaces. I am a workplace strategist. As you mentioned, I had a first book that came out, Reimagine Inclusion, which made the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller list in 2023. I have a new book coming out that will talk about the devil emails at midnight. And TJ, the biggest thing on my mind right now is how to raise kind and inclusive human beings. That's the biggest job I have right now. I'm focused on it. Yes.
How's that going so far?
It's going. Life is lifing. Yeah. I'll take any unsolicited parenting advice afterwards from you or any of our listeners.
Appreciate it. Well, we'll put that out to the universe just to see.
Yes.
I think a lot of folks would probably align with that. So yeah. I'm sure folks have some ideas. I'm curious for you. You're talking about work and work strategy and all that stuff. What role does work play in your life?
I'm at this point in my life where I feel my work is very mission driven. It wasn't always that way, but it's interesting. Can't we be in a place where work can spark joy for us? How many people could say that? I don't know if many people would say that, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think with, all the good that technology's brought in, particularly AI and the race to embrace it, there is this other part of the anti-hustle culture. And what does that mean for work? Like how, technology in many ways is killing us. Like how can we keep up with the demands of work and how do we find joy in work again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think technology is tricky because it is designed to theoretically make things better, simplify all that stuff, but it can feel like it complicates things for us. But one of at least the potential benefits of technology is maybe creating a little more ability to own your work a little more, own the process, work wherever you want to, all that kind of stuff. And you mentioned hustle culture, and I wanted to come to that because I feel like there's pendulums on this, right?
Yes.
I mean, pre-COVID, hustle culture was hard and it was everywhere. And I was, writing snarky blog posts about it because I thought it was just ridiculous that people were bragging about, nearly, destroying themselves to work.
Absolutely.
And then it went way the other way, I think, with COVID. And I think there was a lot of good that came from people going, wait a second, I want to think about what work really means to me. And that
Sure.
created all the great resignation and all this stuff. And now it feels like we're somewhere where we're trying to find a sweet spot, but you
Yeah.
still hear some of the hustle culture stuff. I mean, where do you land on that? What's that optimal balance of, hey, I care about my work and I want to work hard, but I want to stay healthy and related to all of the other
Yeah.
parts of my life as well?
That's a great question. I think one of the foundations of being a good leader is taking care of yourself. And
Mhm.
somehow there's shame in saying that. Am I ashamed to say I'm sleeping at midnight? No, I'm not. I'm not a robot. I'm not an AI
Yeah.
agent. I am asleep at midnight. Now, that doesn't mean that when I'm not passionate about something, I'm not putting in the hours. I'm not saying that. There
Yeah.
are times where you're driving hard. There's certainly with my book launch coming out and things I'm excited about, but we can't constantly be doing that. I'm not an Uber app. I'm not always available. And I've treated myself that way. And so,
Yeah.
having a good night's sleep, eating well, taking care of yourself, going outside and stepping away from the keyboard. Like, those are
Hmm.
all things that are important because then you can show up for yourself and others in the workplace. And yet
Yeah.
there's like a stigma against saying that because you're supposed to be available and you're supposed to be slacking and you're supposed to be responding to emails at midnight, but it's just going to catch up with us. It's just not possible.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Slack, and I was telling somebody recently, I feel like Slack was just designed to destroy our nervous system
Gosh,
because
yeah. The
it's
ping.
the pings and the list of all the different channels, and it's so hard to keep up, but yet it incentivizes us to keep up, and it feels
Yes, it
almost
does.
like gamifying keeping
It
up,
does.
like
It
you're
does. Absolutely. I
clearing.
love how you said that, gamifying keeping up. I hadn't thought about that. It is though, and
Yeah.
how it plays with your brain.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's its own challenge, right? As technology finds ways to play with our brains, how do we find
Yes,
ways to support our brain in the best way possible while still finding ways to interact with
absolutely.
technology? What's your personal suckiest work story?
Gosh, I have
You don't
so
have to name
many.
names.
I know I do. Well, I do in the book. I don't name names. I,
Yeah.
I, I have nicknames for my bosses. I'm going to go to the devil emails at midnight, what good leaders can learn from bad bosses. And
Yeah.
one of the bosses I chronicle, one of the suckiest, I mean, there's a few, but it would be Medusa, who I
Mm.
worked for. And I nicknamed her Medusa for all the reasons you might expect. But I had never at that point in my life, TJ, like no one had ever screamed at me.
Mm.
Not my parents, not my brother, not my husband. I certainly didn't tolerate it from friends.
Yeah.
And so to have someone, you're in the workplace, they're shouting, they're screaming, they're publicly humiliating you, privately doing it as well, berating you, doing it to other people as well,
Yeah.
throwing tantrums like a toddler. You
Mm.
ordered the wrong salad. I mean, I wish I could
Wow.
make this stuff up, but really, it's true. And it's
Yeah.
funny because the people closest to me remember this time in my life. And this was also the boss who threw a Chanel shoe at a colleague and missed her head. But I had buried that memory actually. And it's a testament to my husband who listens to all my stories. He says, "Don't you remember?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it was really traumatic." And it's like, what I don't understand is how we allow leaders like that to stay when we
Mm.
watch so many people turn around on the teams. And I talk about it in the Devil Emails at Midnight. Her first team at the company was a team of 12. They all leave. She goes to run another department. I don't have a choice. I have to go work for her. I mean, we all have a choice, but I'm rotated to work for her. That
Sure.
team of 12 leaves. And you know what happened is really interesting is that fear drives short-term results. I was scared.
Yeah.
I showed up to work scared every day and I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta like outwork this, outrun this. If I do enough, she's not gonna come after me. And then
Hmm.
you realize it didn't matter. The problem was her, not me, not us. It didn't matter what we did or didn't do. And
Right.
then you start to realize it doesn't matter what I do or don't do. You start to work less, you start to fly under the radar, you start
Hmm.
to become disengaged, and it eventually leads to burnout because
Yeah.
fear does not drive long-term results. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I want to echo that message to some folks out in the culture right now. Fear does not drive long-term results. Yeah. I mean, I think for whatever reason, people believe in it. And part of it, and I want to, maybe this person is a good example, it's not always corralled by the organization, meaning it is allowed to persist, that fear-driven leadership style, because maybe somebody further up the organization, even if they're not that way, believes in it. They go, yeah, that'll work. What, if anything, shifts that mindset so that somebody recognizes, I don't want that kind of leader here anymore. Or,
Mm.
is that possible?
It is possible. I think what happens is, many companies actually have processes in place to do investigations, to
Hmm.
document these things. And at the end of the day, it's personal relationships that interfere.
Yeah.
So I am behaving badly. I'm the chief marketing officer, you're the CEO. Where there's
Yeah.
smoke, there's fire. HR comes to you, people come to you, documentation. And guess what? I helped you build the company. Our kids have become friends. You came to my
Mm,
wedding. We summer together, our families hang out, and all of a sudden, this personal relationship weighs really heavy. And
yeah.
you believe what you believe, you see what you want to see, and you make excuses for me. And
Mm,
you also have this loyalty that maybe I've, helped build the company. And, in
yeah.
those situations, I coach CEOs to say, hey, Mita was important for what you did then. She's not going to get you where you need to go. And
Hmm.
the biggest gift you can give to her is to help her move on. Because a lot of times, TJ, when we're talking about this example, I'm so tired of executive coaching being weaponized. Oh, Mita needs an executive coach. Mita needs therapy.
Yeah.
If there is something going on, she's so hurt, and the saying hurt people hurt people.
Hmm.
She's coming in and lashing out at work because she can, because she has
Yeah.
the power to do that. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, sometimes it's the data's there, the systems are there, the checks and balances are there, and that person, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
will risk their own reputation to save
Hmm.
someone else, despite
Hmm.
the fact that all these people are leaving.
Yeah. It's interesting the way you talk about how intertwined those relationships can be. And that's really hard, right? I mean,
Hard.
to
Takes courage.
person who their kids know your kids, you're intertwined in that way and making that sort of more calculated but ultimately beneficial decision to say, I need to move through that to do what's best for both the company, for me personally, probably if I'm the CEO and that CMO
Yes.
is really acting up, and ultimately helping that person. I mean, I would think in that situation as a friend and person who is, working with that person, you'd love to get to a place where you could have that conversation. Like,
Yeah.
have you thought about therapy? Like,
Yeah,
honestly,
absolutely.
like,
Very
really,
heavy.
because as you describe it, yeah, maybe coaching would help them at some point, but it sounds more in that situation, the CEO needs the coaching more than the CMO
Yeah,
needs the
absolutely. It's
coaching, right?
they're deeply hurt and something's happening that they're
Yeah.
showing up at work every day
Mm,
like
yeah. So I'm curious, the book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, I think I kind of understand the title, but I'm curious, how did you get to that title and what ultimately felt like this book had to come out of you?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with why this book had to come out of me. A few
Okay.
years ago, my mother's home was flooded and destroyed. She's happily rebuilt in New England now, living in her home. But what happened in that moment was I was in a home that was soaked, trying to save things. So I'm in my childhood bedroom. I have
Mm,
spelling bee certificates from the fifth grade. I was like the
mm,
proud editor in chief of like the elementary school newspaper, like all these
yeah.
things you hold on to. And I have a notebook because I love a good journal as a writer. I find this
Hmm.
notebook in my closet, and it is a list of bad bosses I had had in my 20s.
Mm,
And I'd written down their names and descriptions and things they said and did to me.
yeah.
And I had this moment, like a flashback from Mean Girls, where they have the burn book. And I thought to myself, like, what if I'm in someone's book? Like, what if
Mm,
someone somewhere
yeah.
has written me down? And they have, because I've been a bad boss, and chances are so have you. So the
Hmm.
genesis of the book was thinking about, I've talked about how do you survive the toxic workplace? How do you survive the bad boss? That's like the number one DM I'll get is
Hmm.
someone sharing a really painful experience they're having at work. And it's like, how do I get out of this situation working for this person?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, what if we are that person? Like, what if
Hmm.
we have behaviors? Now, not all of us are going to be Medusa, hopefully, but what if we have behaviors that can go the other way?
Hmm.
And so for me, one of my first bosses in corporate America was the boss who never had time for me. I was so excited to work for her. Feeling wasn't mutual. She
Mm,
did not have time for me. I chased her around. I say like a golden retriever in the office. I once chased her into the parking lot, like just to have time with her because
yeah.
she never had time for me, except she did have time during the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. That is when she would dump out her inbox.
Got it.
FYI, this invoice needs to be made. We're
Hmm.
having this meeting with the customer on Friday. Where are the samples? Like, and guess what? I was young and I was eager for attention. So, of course, I would email her back
Yeah.
because I wanted to feel valued and worthy. And so,
Hmm.
the devil emails at midnight is more than just about the practice of consistently emailing off hours and how that can burn people out. But it's the
Yeah.
question of why don't we make time for people during the day?
Mm,
That in that case, she didn't. And the question is why and how can
yeah.
you?
Yeah. I mean, in that particular instance, I wonder, does she even realize that that's her job? Because so many other things show up in front of us. I mean, obviously everybody knows all the meetings and da 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 da.
Yes.
And so being a leader means I go to a lot of meetings and I'm able to explain to people what we're doing,
Yes. Yes.
as opposed to being there for my team,
Mm.
which then becomes the thing I have to squeeze in,
Yes.
whenever, and is the first thing I cancel if I set up a one-on-one, and then it's like,
Yes.
I
Exactly.
gotta push
Right.
that. Sorry,
Yeah.
we'll do it next month. So what what can help somebody recognize the importance of actually being there for their team?
Well, if we think about one of the most important things in relationships, any relationship is time. It's the most precious commodity we
Yeah.
have. When you give people their time and you're generous with it and it's meaningful time, that's how
Hmm.
relationships stay strong.
Yeah.
And for me, I think about my calendar like my wardrobe. I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things in there I don't need
Mm-hmm.
and that are taking up space. And so you think about, have you ever gone to a meeting where you all show up and you do the niceties and then you're like, what's this meeting about? And no one knows because there was no agenda or objective
Yeah.
set, or the
Mm-hmm.
person who's supposed to be the decision maker didn't show up, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
invited, or this has been a meeting that's been going on like every 2 weeks since the beginning of the year and no one
Yeah.
had the courage to cancel it. Have the courage to cancel meetings. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is if you're a leader or role modeling, just say, I went through my calendar this week. Here are the 3 meetings we no longer need to have. This
Yeah.
project's done. We're actually talking about this issue somewhere else, or we're going to go async. And I hate to say Slack, but you could
Yeah.
go to Slack. But the point is that you can free up time in your day. And I'm not saying you need to give every team member 90 minutes a week, right? Like people will say, I have too big of a team. I'm saying like 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
teaching, coaching,
Yeah.
even a like, hi, how are you? Not the like, hi on Slack, dot, dot, dot. And you're like, what
Yeah.
does your boss
Oh
want?
God.
It's like,
Yeah.
hi, just wanted to say hello. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope your daughter's basketball tryouts went well. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I'm at work, I exist, and you actually care about me. Like, it's a very small thing. And so that's what I would say. And I loved what you said about the prioritization of meetings. And
Mm-hmm.
when you are meeting with your team, I always say, like, don't cancel that one on one. Now that you've made time in your calendar, have a cadence of when you're going to meet with them.
Yeah.
And then fend off and stay firm. Like whoever's running
Mm-hmm.
your calendar, if it's you or someone else, just to say, this time with Mita is important.
Yeah.
If it moves from Tuesday, it has to happen on Friday. And like you said, the worst is when it's canceled with no explanation. You're like, oh, they
Yeah.
don't even care to meet with
You
me. Like
just
they
get
just
that
canceled it.
notification. Oh,
Right. It's like
yeah.
delete. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how much information is in that simple notification, right? You see the notification,
Yes.
so and so canceled that meeting, and I know I felt this, you sort of spiral into this sense of like, I'm really not valued. Like all of that stuff
It
comes
does.
up. And as you said, it takes like 2 minutes to not have that reaction. Like if you cancel it, go, hey, got to cancel today. I'm pulled into a client thing. I'm going to find this time on Friday.
Yeah.
That's all you
Absolutely.
need.
Absolutely. Or the worst is, as you said, the reschedule that happens and gets pushed out months and months. So it's not the
Mhm.
cancel. It's not death
It's just,
by reschedule. It's like,
yeah,
wait, I thought we were meeting Tuesday and now we're meeting in 3 Wednesdays.
yeah,
And then that morning comes and then that gets moved again
it's
to like
pushed.
3 Fridays from now.
Yeah. And it's just the simple like lack of communication around it that adds to it, or
Yeah.
just the general lack of, as you said, if you just pop on Slack and say, hey, how was your weekend? Da 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 da. And then maybe add a note of like, hey, let me know if you need me for anything.
I love that. That's it.
Boom,
Yes.
you're done. And yet I know I haven't done that at times. Like
Yeah.
I think about particularly
Certainly.
COVID times, like it took a while to figure out how I needed to be present and what that
Yes.
even looked like,
Yeah.
and realizing like, oh my God, I've gone weeks without talking to this person.
Yeah, no, and it can happen. And so that's why it is important to have a cadence of how you meet with your team and how you communicate with them regularly. Now you can
Yeah.
obviously flexible and move those things, but making
Mm.
sure that you show up for them.
Yeah. You mentioned being kind of on both sides of this equation, meaning being the bad boss and having the bad boss.
Yes,
How
yes.
How has that informed what you're trying to communicate in the book? How is that giving you the
Yeah.
perspective you need?
So, I mean, listen, we've all had bad bosses. We could, there's movies made about them, right? So
Yeah.
that's not, and we glamorize them. But I
Hmm.
think over the years, recently, I've had more empathy for bad bosses
Yeah.
because they are misdirected, misguided, hurt humans, and we
Hmm.
all can be that at some
Yeah.
point in time. And the scales tip very easily has happened in my career. Good
Hmm.
leader, bad boss, good leader. And also
Hmm.
really interesting, someone who's a bad boss for me may be a great boss for you. Even
True.
in that moment, with
Hmm.
I am someone, my toxic behavior is micromanaging. We can get into that, but I watch
Okay.
for that in myself.
Yeah.
I also hate to be micromanaged, isn't that right? Hate it, like joy, it kills the joy out of work for me. I
Yeah.
hate to micromanage. And
Hmm.
so I might get really triggered by somebody who I think is a micromanager. You might work for that person and you might at that point in your career enjoy
Yeah.
that level of management, hand holding,
Mm.
direction. And so
Hmm.
that's important to understand too, is
Yeah.
that somebody, as I've talked about the 13 bad bosses, including myself, that I chronicle in the book, I've
Hmm.
changed their names, changed details because I don't want to shame and name people. And actually, I'm sure they're good bosses now, good
Yeah.
leaders, because people change and grow. And those were moments in time that I interacted with them.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's that interesting point about you can be a bad boss for somebody and be a good boss for people. And I can think of my own experiences where, had a pretty good team and most of them, I think, appreciated my leadership. But I know one or two folks where it just, I know I would be frustrated by it. I'm like, I can't
Yes.
quite figure out how to connect to this person.
Yeah,
And that feels like its own art form,
it does.
realizing that you can't necessarily show up the same way for everybody. That one person may need a little bit more of the micromanaging, meaning okay, I need to get into it a little more with this person
Yes.
because that's where they are. But then you show up on the team and it's like, okay, I need to find a way to inspire and motivate you that gets you excited about delivering and maybe gives me the comfort of I don't need to slide in that way. What do you think helped somebody realize how much they need to custom fit their leadership style for people?
It's trial and error and
Yeah,
practice, which is awful because we're doing it to each
I
other.
know.
But it is about meeting people in the middle. I'm not going to be you and you're not going to become me.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that being, at least for the early part of my career, much more of a shy and introverted leader was
Mm-hmm.
that I observed people a lot.
Mm.
And I think if we talked less, listened more, and watched for nonverbals,
Mm.
watched how people interacted, watched how they showed up, watched how they processed information, watched how they speak up, how they engage,
Yeah.
that gives you a sense, like observing human behavior
Mm-hmm.
versus trying to, mandate ways of working. I think about, and
Yeah.
I hate the labels introvert and extrovert, but it is
Mm.
this idea that people process things differently. And if you're trying to be a good leader, thinking about, if I'm an introverted leader, I have extroverts on my team. What does that mean in terms of how we process or vice versa? Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. And I think I wish more leaders would like study how their teams operate. And you're like, I don't
Yeah.
have time for that. You're like, yeah, you do. Just sit, be present in the meeting, shut up and watch.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
watch how they're, and even because I can sense have some level, of self awareness and vulnerability to say, I could sense
Mm-hmm.
that, out of my team of 10, 8 of them and I had a good rhythm, but there were 2 that we would just be
Yeah.
frustrated with each other. We can sense that. If we sit in
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
silence and pause, most of us can sense
Yeah.
when there's friction in a relationship. And the
Yeah.
question is, what role do you play in it and what are you going to do about it? And I think when you're the boss, you just have more power. It's just the way the
Sure.
organization is set up. So you have a bigger responsibility to figure out how
Mm-hmm.
to work on that friction rather than labeling me to a detractor, troublemaker, poor
Mm-hmm.
performer,
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
labels.
I want to go back and talk to myself, at certain times and give that advice because I think we're scared of it, right? It's
Yeah.
like I notice it, I sense it, and then we want to, it's hard to fully take it on.
Yes.
We want
Yes.
to push it aside, and maybe we want to blame the other person, to your point of like, well, they're this way, they're that way. Why aren't they seeing all the things my other teammates seem to see and seem to vibe in the way that I want to? But
Absolutely.
to your point, there's that power dynamic at play, and you really need to take ownership of it and then figure out how you're going to manage it. And
Yeah.
if you're going to have a conversation with that person and kind of go, I mean, my personal take is like, just put it out there. Like, I don't think I'm supporting you the way that you need to be supported. And I'd love to know how I could do a better job, and just put it out there and
Oh, I
recognize.
love that. I love that question. I love
Yeah.
that vulnerability. I wish more people would do that.
Yeah. And I'm not going to pretend I did that very much.
No,
It's
I
more,
mean, I did that once. There were
yeah,
many moments I
maybe a
didn't do
couple
it,
times.
and there were
Yeah.
many moments that I did do it because I
Yeah.
had good leaders teach me to say, take this person out to lunch, get out of the office, and go and
Hmm.
ask them what is happening. And
Yeah.
I include this in the book. There's research from a Harvard University professor, and one of the questions, and I'll summarize it, is what would it make to make you happy? What would it take to make you happy at work again?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
what would it take? Exactly similar to what you're saying. Like you
I
don't
love
feel
that question
supported,
though.
right?
Yeah.
Taking responsibility as a leader, that I bear some level of responsibility in how you are
Hmm.
engaging at work. What can I do? Now, if that person continues to be disengaged and it's not
Yeah.
working, then I would say people are meant to do great things, just not here.
Yeah.
Help them move
Hmm.
on.
Yeah.
But that question can really spark a conversation
Mhm.
and lead to positive outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I think even just being on the receiving end of something like that a couple of times, it sort of has a massive perspective shift really quickly.
It does.
It's like you can be feeling frustrated, unseen, unsupported, not included, to nod to your previous book. Like, and in that question, all of those things can start to wash away. And you
And
see,
suddenly you're seen. Suddenly the
yeah,
person has seen that you're
yes,
disengaged and unhappy
yeah.
and there's friction. It's
Yeah.
amazing, right?
And
You're like,
it's
wow, you
empowering.
see
It's
me.
suddenly like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I can influence how my experience is here because
Right.
you've opened that door for me. Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned that there's 13 bad bosses that are described here, and you said that you were one of them. How do you describe them, and are they sort of aligned? Are you just giving them names? Are they sort of archetypes? How do you break that down? And
Yeah, I mean, there are different names. There's the napper who was
hmm.
disengaged and fell asleep in every meeting, small and large. There was Tony Soprano, named after the famous mobster, who
Yeah.
it was interesting. It was like with one phone call, he could kill your career. And that the joke behind that is, and the reality is this idea of talent hoarding, that when
Mm,
we love people, we don't let them go, that we
yeah.
keep them forever and ever, and then we expect this unwavering loyalty, which we know loyalty is broken in the workplace for all sorts of
Mm,
reasons. So that's
yeah.
really interesting.
Hmm.
And I talk about the cheerleader who is the boss who's spewing toxic positivity. And what
Hmm.
I mean by that, and this is one of the most dangerous bad boss behaviors, is, we're in a time right now where there's tariffs, the markets may be in flux. Competition came out with an innovation you didn't expect, a merger failed, like all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And yet, the team is expected to deliver this goal
Hmm.
by end of Q4. And the 10 things they needed, they only have three. But
Mm.
nothing's changed. It's okay. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You can do it. You're
Yeah.
Superwoman. And that was this boss. And I actually loved him. I called him like the corporate Pied Piper. He was
Hmm.
very smart, very well respected. He surrounded himself with yes people and didn't want no for the answer. And it
Mm.
just was fascinating to me. We were working on this innovation for a cereal brand, and it was doing gangbusters, and supply chain tells us the ingredient's gone. Like we don't have access to the
Oh,
ingredient
geez.
anymore. Like we're not going to be able to produce the product for a few months.
Mm.
Happens. And
Yeah.
he's like, let's add $1 million to the forecast. We're like,
What?
we can't do that, right? You can't do that. Let's add 1 million. What happens? He adds 1 million, corrals everybody. I'll never forget. I'm sitting in my performance review and I'm dinged. Why? Because we missed the $1 million forecast. And I'm like,
Yeah.
is this the Twilight Zone? Did I just dream all this? And so that is what's really dangerous, is that I'm not saying that you shouldn't be realistic, that you shouldn't be I'm not saying you should be optimistic and inspire your team. I'm saying
Yeah.
a dose of realism is important, that when your
Yeah.
team comes to you and says, here are the reasons why. I'm not trying to not do the work,
Right.
right? I'm not trying to get away with a shortcut. I'm just telling you this is not feasible. Look at the facts. And when
Hmm.
someone still looks at you in the face and says, I believe in you, you're like, what are
Yeah.
you going to do?
What are you even believing in at this point? My
Yes.
ability to perform magic?
Yeah.
I mean, what
Yes.
exactly have you taken on? Yeah, I mean, I optimism is one of my core values, but I don't like that toxic positivity. And what I
Yes.
realize is the way I define optimism is I sometimes use the phrase active optimism, meaning
Oh, I love that.
you have a really big role
Hmm.
in bringing the optimism to life. You're creating a
Yes.
thing. And what that means, obviously, is if you're encountering a situation like that, you have to go, okay, well, I can't create another $1 million. What can we create? What is a different way we can still support the team here? What other
Yes.
product could we maybe bring
Right.
into the fold here? Like, let's get creative, let's get inventive, not
Right.
let's do this
Yes,
and then
exactly. Let's
smile.
pretend,
Yeah.
bury your head in the sand.
Okay, so we've got the cheerleader, we've got Tony Soprano. Who
Got
else?
the
Who are you?
devils. Yeah, I actually don't name myself. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, the book ends with me, and I lost my dad suddenly in 2017.
Oh, geez.
And
Sorry.
so thank you. I talk about the role grief plays in our
Hmm.
lives in the workplace. And it was so sudden with the phone call,
Mm.
my life was turned upside down. And I buried the grief. And I show up back at work, and I'll never forget, this former boss I'm working for says, "Oh, good. Looks like you got your mojo back." Right. And it's this idea of like, hey, I got the flu and I got over it. No, you lost someone you love.
Yeah.
And there's also this expectation at work. Like, first of all, it's so fascinating that we will all lose someone we love and we will all die. And
Yeah.
yet it's the one thing we don't want to talk about, and certainly not at work. And
Hmm.
so we brush it under the rug. And I sort of, in that moment, in those few weeks, months, I was the bad boss. I screamed at people, I yelled at people, I not proud of this. I also was disengaged for a while. People would wonder where I went, and then I would show up. I remember we had this presentation to a leadership team, and like 30 minutes before, I'm in the deck changing everything. And again, details that didn't matter, but I
Yeah.
was spiraling and had a sense of a loss of control.
Hmm.
And so I talk about that because there's usually three bad boss moments. Like, when do they occur? Number one, we talked about, like, there's external agitation. Something's happening in the business
Hmm.
and it's causing stress.
Yeah.
Number two is something's happening with your boss. And in my house, we say poo poo trickles down. You're my boss. You're in
Yeah.
a bad mood, and I am now taking that on.
Yeah.
And then the third is something's happening. We've lost a loved one, a miscarriage, a divorce,
Hmm.
breakup, a move,
Yeah.
something happening with our children, like all of these things,
Hmm.
elderly relatives, and
Hmm.
we pretend they're not happening, and we show up at work and it still manifests itself.
Mm. Yeah. That's such a, I mean, it's just so real. And yet we create this false environment at work that doesn't allow that to permeate. And it's not that necessarily work has to be a, 8 hour therapy session every
No.
day for people, but it just the simple awareness of those
Yes.
things. And then maybe some empathy and maybe even some training. I don't know if that sounds so clinical, but like, how do we deal with the fact that people are going to be bringing in these massive disruptions to their
Yeah.
life and to their
Yeah.
psyche and to their soul into the workplace? And how do
Yeah.
we navigate
I
that?
mean, I think therapy and more companies offering it to their employees is a wonderful benefit and
Yeah.
really important. So
Yeah.
kudos to the companies who do that.
Hmm.
Bereavement leave, any
Hmm.
company who's asking for death certificate, obituary, game over, like, do not do that to your people. Three
Hmm.
days isn't enough. Think about how many days off you can give, and then also think about like additional grief days. So
Yeah.
there's a period of when someone suddenly dies, getting things in order and affairs, but then
Mm.
there's months later where you might want to honor their birthday
Yeah.
or do a life celebration or things like that. I think that's so important. But the one thing, we go back to having more vulnerability in the workplace. And like you said, it's not an 8 hour trauma dump
Yeah.
session, but the more people I had said and told or knew that my dad had died suddenly, it was sort of if I can say that there was any gift in it, which sounds strange to say, but
Hmm.
I had so many people come up to me to say, I lost my dad 10 years ago. And it's like it had yesterday, happened yesterday.
Hmm.
I lost my daughter. I lost my mother's very ill. I'm dealing with a sick aunt, neighbor. And you're like, wow. And, in that moment, you connect with people in a different way. And so
Hmm.
then when a serial innovation fails, it's like, we've been through worse. Like
Yeah.
we can get through it, right?
Yeah.
You don't put so much. I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, of course you didn't meet your number, but then you
Right.
can rally in a different way because you've been through other just so much more devastating loss than a failed
Yeah.
innovation. And I think that when you can show people just a piece of your humanity and things that you're going through, you connect with them in a different way. And that doesn't mean you're talking about it all day, every day. But it's
Yeah.
just that I role modeled and I just let you into a part of my life I'm struggling with. So you know that if I
Hmm.
show up angry in this meeting,
Right.
I might just be upset about my dad not being here. It's not that I'm upset about your recommendation, right? You then
Right.
can sort of understand how people might be reacting. Doesn't excuse the behavior, but then you're
Right.
like, oh, I can understand it. And then I might even apologize and say, like, I'm sorry I snapped. Let's
Hmm.
get back to this. I apologize.
Yeah. You're putting that awareness in the water at work,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
it's just now there for everybody to notice, including yourself, because
Yep.
you know
Absolutely.
now that you've put it in
Yeah.
the water. And so you know everybody's aware.
Yes.
And therefore you can maybe then go, okay, I know I pushed it there. We all know where I'm at right now, but I do
Yes.
apologize. I need to own the
Yes.
behavior. And, I think this experience of how kind of sidelining a lot of that stuff, it reminds me of the show Severance, which I don't know if you've
Which I
watched.
have not watched yet. It's on my list.
I've only watched, maybe most of season one, but it's this idea. I mean, the basic idea is that you are fully compartmentalized, meaning you actually like when you step into the building, like your brain is washed of your personal
Oh,
experience.
wow.
And now you're just at work. And then the same thing happens. Like, so basically work you doesn't know personal you. But
Mm.
it's getting to this idea that we have to sort of squeeze ourselves into some mold at
Boxes.
work that denies so much of what it means to be a
Yeah.
human being.
Yes. Yes.
And then you become a bad boss because you're
Yeah.
you're wearing this straitjacket of corporate life and nothing has any room to
What a
move.
visual straitjacket. You've convinced me. I'm going to watch Severance. I'm going to put it on
I
my
think it's
binge
worth
list.
it. I do.
Okay.
It's really interesting. But, so I don't know if this is in some of the work you do, but how can an organization more effectively just create space for the more fullness of our humanity and maybe without what the fear might be, which that it just
Mm.
becomes this constant dumping of like the worst parts
Yeah.
of ourselves. How to kind of thread that?
I think it goes back to making time for each other. I don't think it calls for like a 2-day offsite or some
Yeah.
trip somewhere or bringing in
Hmm.
a coach and facilitator. Yes, you can do all that.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that if I work for you and we meet weekly for 30 minutes on projects or other things, and even if we don't have anything to talk about, we talk about whatever we feel comfortable talking about personally, or
Hmm.
just advice on career or how I feel like it's going here, then it just becomes easier because we have a relationship. I mean, it's really
Hmm.
that's what it comes down to. It's not
Yeah.
some, I think,
An appro-
big solution or program. It's just being human. And I'm a big fan of Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he has this stop and chat where it's like, he says, "Hi, how are you?" and runs away, or like he hates the stop and chat, right?
Yeah.
But actually, like if you're going to ask someone how they're doing, you need to make space for the
Mm-hmm.
reaction, and that doesn't mean it's like an 8-hour therapy session.
Right.
Just wanted to check in on this and I'm here if I can do anything. Someone
Hmm.
loses someone they love. There's not much you can do except for to support them and be
Yeah.
there and say, if you
Hmm.
need an extra day off, if I can cover something,
Yeah.
people who sent meals to my home, right?
Hmm.
Things that like just small things, like even months later, or like,
Hmm.
I know this Father's Day might be tough for you and I'm thinking of you. All those sort of
Yeah.
things. Those things make such a difference and they're just such small actions.
Yeah. I can see that they're pretty powerful levers in the way of moving the way you feel about your
Yes.
workplace.
Absolutely.
I do wonder if you're at the top of an organization, you need to model some of that,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
To
Absolutely.
to just let people know that you can relate to people that way at work and that it doesn't have to be some, severance like all work all
It
the
does. I
time.
mean, and that's the one of the premises of being a good leader is that you
Yeah.
have to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And, we used to live in a time, and some leaders still think this, that you're supposed to have all the answers.
Yeah.
When people call me an expert, I'm like, I'm not an expert. There's no such thing as experts anymore. I just have
Right.
deep expertise. The world keeps changing.
Yeah.
But I think we have to shed this idea that, once you get to this level, I've
Hmm.
gotten it for a reason. I've earned it. I deserve it. All those things. And like now
Yeah.
I have to tell everyone what to do and I have to know what to do rather than saying, hey, this is a complex world we're living in. Here's a problem we're facing. And
Yeah.
I think it could be this, but I want your advice. Like, what about
Hmm.
these other three solutions? What about a solution I haven't heard? And that
Yeah.
I think is what more leaders need to show.
Yeah. I think that I've definitely remember feeling that at certain times, really taking on that.
Yeah.
And, now I work as a coach as well. And I'll say that to somebody like, do you feel like you have to know everything? And they're like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And this is folks who are, even fairly junior. It's like they just got promoted to like one level up. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, I feel like I have to know everything now. It's like, well, what would change if you didn't? How would you be if you didn't? And that gets you to that place of there's, I think, curiosity.
Yes.
Okay, well, then what's here if I don't know it? And what you were getting to a little bit is like that expertise means, well, I certainly know how to help a team figure things out.
Yes. That's why I'm in this position.
So that's what I'm bringing. And I'm inviting you into that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's get into figure out mode. That's the
And that's
skill.
what makes me feel included and like you want
Yeah.
me on my team and belong and that you value me because you're like asking for my opinion.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, what do you think? How do you think we should approach this? And I'm like, oh, awesome. Like, you care what I think. That's why you
Yeah.
hired me, right? Right.
I want to touch on inclusion because I know you wrote your previous book on that idea. I mean, if there was a relatively high level synopsis of what does inclusion or what should it look like in the workplace, what do you
Well,
think?
I feel like we've lost the plot. I guess we can say inclusion on your show, right? We're not
Yeah.
supposed to say diversity, equity, inclusion, like all
Right.
these things. And it's like, this is what inclusion in the workplace means that we've been talking about. I work for you, TJ. I feel seen. I feel valued. I belong. I know my voice matters. I know my work matters. I know
Hmm.
you care that I'm there and you're invested in me. And I have the potential to reach my full potential there. I have the
Yeah.
opportunity, right? Whether I
Hmm.
take advantage of it or not is another thing, but the
Yeah.
opportunity is there for me to reach my potential. And what it feels like, the opposite, is that the moments in my career, does anyone know that I'm here? Does anyone care that I'm here? Does
Hmm.
anyone even know what I work on? Because people keep
Yeah.
stealing my work or taking me out of meetings and so
Yeah.
that's what it is. And it's such a driver of productivity. I just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are. It's about building a workplace where everyone can just do their best work.
Hmm.
That is the biggest retention tool because I will tell you, I've led businesses, I've been on brands that have been in double digit decline. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about this the other day. I mean, I didn't update my resume for like 4 years and we turned that business around. But why? It's because even the vice president would show up with the Starbucks at 8 a.m. for me and the team and just be
Hmm.
like, okay, so I know we got this meeting tomorrow for the customer. Like, let's sit down. Let's sit down. He's gonna sit down and teach us. And
Yeah.
we're gonna go through some of the numbers and like what we can be doing to turn this around. And yeah, I mean, that is one of the biggest examples. Why did I look? Because I just felt like I was part of something bigger and people
Yeah.
cared that I was part of it.
It is sort of amazing because it feels very intuitive. Like, well, let's bring everybody in and let's give everybody a chance to shine and contribute and all that stuff. And even as you were describing that sense of not feeling seen, it's like, or not being included in certain meetings, it's like, it's really simple to get curious enough about a person to realize all they have to offer, or at least more of what they
Yeah.
have to offer. And yet we're so quick to put somebody really in a narrow window. She's really good at, running meetings. So I'm just going to have her run meetings. And
Yes.
meanwhile, you're super creative, you're inventive, you're resourceful, like all these other skills. Maybe you have a hobby that is actually relevant to what we're doing on a big project
Yes.
and you could bring in expertise there. But we don't get curious enough to know those things.
Absolutely.
And then we're left with this very one-dimensional view of a person. And when I hear you describe inclusion the way you do, I go, it's just seeing people in 3D.
Oh, I love that. That's what it is. It's
Right?
beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that.
And inviting them in. Yeah.
I think that should be a t-shirt, TJ. You should work on that. That's a beautiful phrase. I love it.
Oh, nice. I appreciate that. Well, I want to touch on one thing on the bad boss thing again, which is we all know we are capable of being bad bosses. Are there ways we can sort of pre-screen ourselves to notice if we're drifting into bad boss
Yeah.
behavior?
I think that's a great question. We talked about the three moments you might start to exhibit that behavior.
Hmm.
I think not enough of us sit with ourselves in silence.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were talking earlier about your leadership journey, you said you could sense the frustration. We know it.
Yeah.
Unless you are really, really hurt, like a Medusa, like a Tony Soprano, like these bosses I'm talking about that are really, really hurt and need extensive therapy.
Yeah.
Most of us know when there's friction happening, when we're not behaving well, when we're uncomfortable. Listen, this book is not for the baddest of the bad bosses. It's not for the worst of the worst. It's
Yeah.
for the rest of us, right? Who
Yeah.
are trying to just do better. And so
Hmm.
for me, we talked about this earlier. I know micromanagement is my toxic habit.
Yeah.
I love details. I like things a certain way. And so I know in any of those moments when I'm stressed, I could go the other way. And so
Hmm.
to watch for that. The other thing is watch for signs from other people.
Hmm.
Watch for signs. I'll never forget. I got an exit interview once where a woman resigned from my team and was like, she's Mita's disengaged. She's not in as coach mode, doesn't, I'm not getting the opportunities. And she once was a good boss. I wish her the best. And it's like, it's staring at you right in the face. And how many of us do exit interviews? Are they canceled? Do they still happen? I
Yeah.
hope they happen, but it's
Yeah.
like the signs are there. If you're walking into a room and people get quiet, people get anxious, people are disengaged, they don't speak up as much. Like, what are you doing that's
Hmm.
maybe evoking this behavior, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be something someone's going through personally. So I'll
Sure.
put that aside, but it could be the way in which you're showing. So watch for those signs. And then the third is ask for feedback. And,
Hmm.
context and situations matter. Not all feedback is feedback you need to action. I
Yeah.
certainly know that in my career. But what I would say is I don't even call it feedback, I call it coaching. And if
Hmm.
you and I were working together and you're on my team and we have coffee on Friday scheduled, I would write you a note and I would say, TJ, I'm excited to meet with you on Friday. I've been thinking about my own career development plan. And one of the things I am working on is wanting to delegate more. I'd love your coaching on that. And I'd love for you to
Mm.
share some thoughts on Friday. And why I do it in writing is, well, one, I'm a writer, but two, because I've given you notice, like
Yeah.
you can then think about it. I'm not putting you on the spot. What do you think?
Yeah.
What's your feedback?
Yeah.
What am I doing badly?
What do
And
you
those
think
are
of
the
me?
worst. You're like, oh God. So then you have time to process it. You have time to present it to back to me. But
Hmm.
also I'm being vulnerable. Again, I'm
Yeah.
I'm not saying, tell me what you want me to start, stop, and continue doing. I mean, God, that
Right.
question. It's like, well, no, why don't you tell me and then I'll tell you what I think. Right. So I'm telling you, and you're gonna say, you know what, Mina, I don't actually think it's delegating. I think you do a good job delegating, but then I think you need to spend more time with the team on these pieces
Mm.
because they're not getting the coaching and teaching they need on how to do X, Y, and Z. And then I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And then
Hmm.
I think if you do that enough and you know that as your time as a coach, then it becomes a giving and receiving
Yeah.
circle of coaching because then you might come back to me in a few days and say, actually, I'd love to get your coaching on this thing that I'm struggling with at work
Right.
and how I'm showing up. And that's the culture you want to create.
Yeah. It feels like all of that comes back to the one being willing to be a little bit vulnerable,
Yes.
and just recognizing that it's okay not to know everything and
Yes.
that you can show up and say, hey, I'm working on things,
Yeah.
and I'd love your support with that. That feels like that unlocks so much when the
Yeah.
culture shifts in that way.
It does. Absolutely.
So I'm curious about the sort of remote hybrid world. I just wanted to touch on this briefly because there's different behaviors that show up here. And
Sure.
what is like the one big watch out in that world that you have that
Hmm.
you can think of for leaders that they can just be paying attention to that's maybe different than if you're mostly or full time in the office?
I think that we have way too much technology available to us, and most teams don't have a framework by which they communicate and how they're using the technology. So, what do I mean by that? I had a boss who, when something was urgent, it would be the Slack, the email, the missed call, the text, and then the FaceTime audio. You're like, what is
Yeah.
going on? All within the span of like maybe an hour
Yeah.
because they couldn't get in touch with us because I'm in a meeting paying attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Yeah.
someone else who's important. And so
Mm-hmm.
having that, especially when you're in a hybrid workforce, having the communication down on like, my team knows if I call you, that means that we've lost a customer. we're restructuring.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's left the team. Something is happening that I need you to pick up.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll see them this call and they'll call back. But guess what? If I do that every single time,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about this in the devil emails at midnight. When everything is urgent, nothing is urgent.
Yeah.
And so I think this idea of making sure that you've got right framework in place and how you communicate, because then you also don't want the person who's working remotely on the team to feel like they have to be available all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding like core working hours, and I'm not saying there are not going to be times where you might be working late or there's like a weekend project, but setting those boundaries
Yeah.
and expectations of when you want to hear from someone is so important. And then I just think for leaders, the proximity bias is real. So if I'm with you every day in the office and we can grab coffee or a drink or breakfast, and then Tom is in another location, but he's remote, do I think of every time I grab coffee with you, let me just grab on a Zoom and send him a $20 Starbucks gift card and
Yeah.
say, hey, we just wanted to chat and see how the week was going. And that I think is something we have to be very intentional about.
Yeah.
How much time do you give to people, and is it equal? Now, it's not going to always be equal all the time,
Yeah.
but are you spending disproportionate time with the 3 people on your team because you like them more and they sit next to you versus the other people, to your point, who are remote?
Yeah. I love that. Intentionality seems really critical in that environment.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. What's one thing somebody can do right now to make work better for themselves?
I would say if you're a boss, and it can be anyone, be who you needed when you were younger.
Mm.
I say that a lot because, I can talk about a lot of the bad bosses I've had. I've had good bosses too, but I think about that now. What's my responsibility to pitch in and help someone on a project, to coach someone when their boss is missing in action,
Mm-hmm.
to be a mirror and help somebody when they're behaving badly, all of those things. Like, how
Yeah.
can you be there for someone else in our workplace? I think we're all concerned with our careers, as
Yeah.
we should be. But my question is, whose career are you concerned about other than your own? Like, who
Yeah.
else are you helping at work?
I love that. What do you think work's going to look like in 5 years?
Oh gosh, in 5 years. Well, now I'm going to pull on Severance. Should I pull on Severance? I haven't even seen it, but you gave me the preview.
Yeah, let's see.
I think there's going to be, I do think there's going to be a big swing and a backlash to, the anti-hustle culture. And I say that because I think there's going to be a moment where AI has scaled to such a degree
Mm-hmm.
and so much work has been automated. How are human beings going to feel like they can keep up? And we can't keep up. We have to lean into being human.
Mm-hmm.
And I also hope that AI doesn't create a generation of lazy bosses.
Yeah.
Meaning that if you've automated a lot of work, well, then this is the conversation. We have time. We have time for each other.
Yes.
We have time to coach each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think is going to be sort of the next big challenge in our workplace. I also could see, I don't know if it's in 5 years, TJ, but I could see job descriptions going away. I could see people sort of in the world of consulting,
Yeah.
where you have expertise in industry, but you are talent that's matched to projects and companies. I know a lot of smaller companies do this, but like big companies, like there's no more job description. You're just a pool in
Yeah.
marketing, and you're going to be deployed to projects. So you're no longer vice president of
Right.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You are maybe levels, but everyone has the same title, which, kills the, let's say, the corporate America dream that I chase, which is get the biggest glass office with the city view. If you're lucky, there's a bathroom and couch in it, and you get to look out and see all the people that report
Survey
into
your
you.
kingdom. Yeah.
And that is, that's flipped on its head. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think all of that, I can picture all of that being a piece of it. The idea that you are less known for a title or a specific thing you do, but more almost a collection of traits and strengths and passions
Yes.
that you can then apply as part of a team. I love that idea. And I think there's a coach I follow. He has a company called The Art of Accomplishment. His name is Joe Hudson. He's a really interesting guy. But his whole philosophy is that we're sort of entering the wisdom economy, that's what's
love
most
that.
valued. And
Yeah, it is.
underneath that emotional intelligence, these are the skills for an AI led world when it comes
It
to all
is,
the tasks.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but how does somebody get trained into that when
Yes.
they're leaning on AI, to your point? Like, do you become the lazy leader, or how do you gain wisdom in that?
Yes.
I don't quite know.
The
Yeah.
journey we're all on. I love
Yeah.
that.
So I know I've asked you a fair amount of questions here. I'd love to give you a chance to turn it around and ask one to our audience.
Oh gosh, I love this. Do you know when you've been a bad boss, if you're honest? If I was to ask everyone and we were in like a large studio audience and I said, raise your hand if you had a bad boss, I think every single
Everyone's
person
gonna
would
be.
raise their hand. But then what about the flip? You know, when you've been a bad boss, are you willing to admit that you've been a bad boss? And I think that's
Yeah.
a really powerful question to think about.
I like that question. I think it's the one thing is to be like, have you ever been? I could go, yeah. And then to really think about when was that? What were you doing?
Yeah.
Who were you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. It definitely makes me think. If you could wave a magic wand and fully desuckify the world of work, what does that world look like?
I get to go into work and do great work. Full stop. That's it. I get
That's
to
it.
go to work and do the job I was hired to do and do it really well. I mean, and all the other stuff we talk about is just not even there. It's
Yeah,
great.
I know. It's slightly sad to me that we have to wave a magic wand to create
Yeah.
that world, but
Yeah.
I know that you're out there pushing, and I'm
Oh,
trying my piece too
yeah.
to move us closer to that
Yeah.
world. So I like to have a little fun on the show with sound effects. If you've ever
Okay.
listened,
All
you
right.
hear cats and other sounds. Do you have a sound that you can contribute to our
Let
growing
me see. I don't know if
library?
you've had this sound before. Let me try it. Mom! Mom! Mom!
I imagine a lot of folks will resonate with that one as well.
Repeatedly, 3 times loudly. And I'm like, yes? What? What do you need? Yes. And then there's silence. That's actually better than my tongue clicking that didn't.
Awesome. I love that. Well, last thing, of course, I like to ask is how can people learn about you, the work you're doing? How do they connect to you? And obviously your book.
Yeah, thank you so much. The Devil Emails at Midnight, What Good Leaders Can Learn from Bad Bosses. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it at your local independent bookstore. You can find me on LinkedIn. I love meeting new people and MitaMallick.com. And thank you, TJ. This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you, Mita. I really loved it as well. And I'm excited for your book to come out. And I'm going to dive in and see how much I see myself in it.
Awesome. Let
All
me
right.
know. Thanks.
Will do. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Mita for bringing a fun look at bad bosses to the show. You can follow Mita on LinkedIn and check out her site at MitaMallick.com, where you can learn all about the cool work she's doing and find a link to pre-order her book, The Devil Emails at Midnight, which launches on September 30th. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to help your teams bring their absolute best to work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow into the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free Desuckify Work t-shirt. Bye, everyone.